In this video, I have the updated best controller settings you can use to be good at Fortnite. These have helped me drop high elim games in reload, get to unreal rank in builds, and hit some nice clips in creative, all while having some pretty good mechanics in aim. And I think these settings can help you do the same. And to make this video possible, we thank Raycon's new everyday earbuds for sponsoring this part of the video. And hear me out, because these are actually super underrated. Raycon took their most popular earbuds and made them even better, adding more comfort, and my favorite part, they added active noise cancellation, so whether you're at school, on a road trip, or even just chilling at home, you can block out the noise. They also added 3 new colors, which all look super clean, and honestly, these were good before. I have the old version and I used them, but the new features just make these ones next level. There's a quick charge mode where 10 minutes of charging will get you 90 minutes of battery, and they're weatherproof as well as sweat resistant. You really can do it all with these, and at this low of a price, it's kind of a no-brainer if you need a new pair or even to give as a gift. So to check these out, click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/Carter2K to get 15% off your Raycon purchase. Plus, you get free shipping. So let's jump right into these, and I'll even be explaining the settings, so if you want to adjust anything, you'll understand. Now, the very first page here is video, which for me might look a little different from you because I actually play with my controller connected to a PC. So on my PC, I run the default resolution, I run 180 FPS, I need to get a better monitor. I have performance mode on, and then all my graphics and colorblind settings are all just default. The only thing that I change if I'm on console is I come over here, turn my brightness all the way up, and then I turn my colorblind mode to Tritone. This basically just brightens up the screen, which I think console needs, but PC does not. And one other thing is if you're on console, in this tab will display the 120 FPS mode, and if you're on next gen console, you definitely want to have that on. Now, one tab over from that will be the audio tab, and over here, honestly, all these top sliders are kind of personal preference. Your sound effects is what will control the sounds of like guns and footsteps in game, so if you want those as loud as possible, turn it up all the way. I like mine right about 89%. And then down a little bit, really the most important setting in this tab is visualize sound effects turned on. This basically makes it so when you're in game, an icon will actually show on your screen when any sort of other player interaction happens. So like say they're shooting way off in the distance, you might not even be able to hear it in your headset, but with this turned on, you'll be able to see the icon on your screen and it'll tell you where the shooting's coming from. Same thing with footsteps. Sometimes you won't be able to hear them, but you can actually see that there's someone near you. So visualize sound effects is actually one of the most overpowered settings in the game, so you have to make sure you have that turned on. And then the rest of these kind of don't matter. It's just a bunch of voice chat stuff. Now over to the game tab. This one is pretty important. Your ping, you obviously want to make sure this is set to whatever one you have the lowest MS in. Some of the servers can get bugged, so if you're not 100% sure, you could set it to auto. It wouldn't be the worst thing, but generally if you know which one you have the lowest in, you just want to set it to that. In mantle and hurdle activation, these honestly, whatever setting they're on, don't really change that much. Now for combat, hold the swap pickup, I like turned on. Toggle targeting, you definitely want turned off. Auto pickup weapons, some people use, I prefer not to. I think it's kind of annoying. And preferred item slots is actually pretty important. I'd say it's more important than most people give it credit for. So in your first slot, as a controller player, you should basically always want your shotgun. This is the fastest slot to get to. And then to follow that up, I almost always have an SMG or an AR, so I can go straight from a shotgun to a follow-up with an SMG. And that is key for fighting. You don't want to be switching from like your first to your fourth slot. So having your guns right next to each other to quickly get back and forth is very important. And then I usually have at least 1 heal, usually 2. And then in that last slot, I usually like to have some sort of movement, so whether that's shockwaves, fists, or if I have no movement, then sometimes I'll just pick up an extra gun like a sniper or an AR or something. Obviously, your loadout can change game by game, but generally, this is the layout I like to stick with. Now we can move on to building, which I think has 4 of the most important settings in the game. Actually, reset building choice isn't a crazy big deal, but it is important to have this turned on, especially if you like to rotate your builds. This basically means that if you go and you rotate your builds, then that means if you put your builds away and then pull them back out, everything will be back to default. So it's not the most important, but it definitely is nice to have. Disable pre-edit option, this kind of depends on what ping you're on, because on low ping, you can sometimes take advantage of pre-edits. You can do something like this and do this and then catch someone off guard, but the issue is that if you're on high ping, sometimes you'll accidentally pre-edit a build, and then when you're going and building, you have like holes in your walls or something. Turbo building, I mean, this is a no-brainer. I can't believe this is even a setting. It should always be on. In auto confirm edits, I always set this to bold. This basically means that every single time I do an edit, all I have to do is click my edit button, which for me is my far right paddle. And then once I do that, all I have to do is click my select button, which is my right trigger. And as soon as I let that go, it's going to confirm my edit. Whereas if you have double edit buttons, you have to click edit, you have to click select, and then you have to click confirm. So you have to click 3 buttons to do just one edit. And if you have the setting on both, which is what I have, it also does that for reset. So all you have to do to reset is click edit and then click my reset button, which is right stick. It's been proven that with this, you can edit and reset just as fast. It doesn't make your mechanics any slower, but some people argue that in box fights, you're at a disadvantage because you can't do something like this and really get to the corner and like have a good angle like you could if you were confirming manually. However, personally, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I can still build fight and box fight perfectly fine. I have no issue with that. And especially if you're not the most advanced player, like you don't grind this game 10 hours a day, then I think it just makes editing easier. Like it's more simple. You click 2 buttons instead of 3. So I stand by having auto confirm edits set to bold. Now, if you're not a complete noob, you obviously want contextual tips turned off. For the extra game options, it's kind of just as it says, it's extra. The only setting that I think is really nice is having tap to search and interact turned on. And if you want a good tip for input delay, just turn all of your replays off. Sometimes it's nice to have your normal game replays turned on to go back and look at stuff, but as far as like creative, large team, and high quality, if you have all those turned off, it can help with your input delay and make your game run a little better. And if you're on PC, make sure to go into energy saving and turn both of these off. Otherwise, it'll make your performance way worse. Now, one tab over from there will be the game UI. And basically every single one of these top settings are personal preference. I like to have my damage scale numbers as high as possible so I can see them because sometimes they're hard to see. Reticle damage feedback I don't really care about. Damage numbers I prefer lists, but again that's just personal preference. In reticle, unless you have a custom one, then you'd want this turned on. HUD scale, I actually recommend turning this up. I have it turned down so you guys can see my face cam and stuff, but if I was just playing like without recording, I would definitely want this turned up to like 85. And the rest of these I wouldn't really touch. If you really want to see your ping, you can turn on net debug stats, but that's about all you need there. And then one tab over will probably give us the most useless tab in all of the settings, which is gyro options. And for regular controller, this is not good at all. It's good for maybe Nintendo Switch, and that's it. So unless you're on Nintendo Switch, come over here and just turn gyro aiming completely off and then get out of that tab. It's so bad. Then we have a couple of the mouse and keyboard settings which don't really matter, and then we get to the controller tab. In this tab, I have controller auto run turned off, but quick tip, even if you have controller auto run turned off, while running forward, you can open up your map, let go of your stick, and then close your map, and you'll actually be auto running. So instead of like double tapping my sprint bind or anything, I just do that really quick if I want to auto run. It's super easy, and I've just gotten used to doing that, so that's what I have. Build immediately, this only applies for builder pros, so it doesn't actually matter for most people, but it doesn't hurt to just have it turned on. Edit hold time, again, this doesn't matter for like 90% of players. The only time this matters is if you edit and have switch mode on the same button. So over here in your binds over on building, there's this bind called switch mode / edit hold. And if this is the button you're clicking to pull out your builds and edit, you do not want that. You want separate buttons to pull out your builds and a separate button to edit. And if you have separate buttons, then this doesn't matter. For slide hold time, generally anything between like 0.5 and 0.1, I'd say is pretty good. Anywhere in there really works. Then reset camera access and reset camera time, these again don't matter because we have gyro aiming turned off. So both those settings are actually meant for gyro aiming. So whether you change these to whatever, it's not going to affect it if you have gyro aiming turned off. Then vibrations, for the sake of your aim, you always want to have vibrations turned off. Same thing with quick weapon. I literally only know one controller player in the world that uses quick weapon because it's not good. It's slower and more complicated than just switching your weapons normally, so almost no one actually uses this. Which, to make sure you're not using this, all you have to do is go again over to your binds, go to general, go down until you see this button that says quick weapon, and then click the red X on it. Then if you set this to custom only and don't have a bind for it, then quick weapon is off. Now down below that, you're gonna see this use advanced options, and you wanna make sure this is turned on. Once that's on, these two settings you can't change, which don't matter because we're not going off of the Sens anymore anyway. What we're going off of is the build and edit multipliers, which I have both of these set to 2.0. And one thing that so few players realize is that these are actually just multiplying your look sense. So like the look sense on my favorite settings are 43% on both horizontal and vertical with no boost. I don't use any boost on any of my settings, but you can see that my look sense, so right here, this is my look sense. Even even if I have a gun out, this is still my look sense, and as soon as I pull out my builds, this is now double that look sense. So like this is 43% and this is 86% essentially. Like watch this, if I'm building and editing, I'm doing everything normally, right? But now let's go over to the settings. Let's set these to only 1.0, but let's set these to double, so 86%. Now this is obviously a super fast look sense, which would be terrible for hitting shots. But if I pull up my builds, the build and edit sense is the exact same. And the only reason that I bring that up is because if you change your look sense, your build and edit sense will change too. So say you try these settings and you really like how the build and edit sense feels, but the look sense is too fast. You just can't hit your shotgun shots, and you decide you want to come over here and turn your look sense down to say 37%. Even though you didn't touch your build and edit multipliers, your build and edit sense still changed. So if you wanted this lower look sense, but you wanted your build and edit sense to stay the same, you'd have to actually turn these up to like 2.2 to make up for that. So many people think that these are just separate sensitivities, but they're not. They're completely just multiplying whatever your look sense is. So if you decide to adjust your settings, make sure to remember that. Now down below, this is the ADS sense, which I've set to 7% horizontal, 8% vertical, and again, I don't use any boost on my sensitivities. Generally, staying anywhere between like 6 to 12% on your ADS sense is pretty good, which I'm specifically talking about for linear settings. If you're on exponential, some people go a little bit higher, up to like 17% is what REIT uses, but I think linear is better for most players, and for linear, I like to use this. Generally, I like to say that the best ADS sense is the sense that makes hitting shots the easiest, which usually means slower, but you still have to be able to keep up with like cars and fast moving people. So if your ADS sense is too slow to the point where you can't hit people like gliding, then you'd want to turn it up a little bit. But for me on this ADS sense, I can hit every shot I want to. Then look damage time is on 0 seconds. Again, I don't like to mess with any of the boosts or anything. And then look input curve, as I just said, is on linear. Now aim assist strength, obviously we always want on 100%. And then dead zones on my controller, which is the Scuff and Vision Pro, I go 10% on both left and right stick, which usually honestly works well for all of my controllers, and I have like 37 of them or something. But if you do this and you get stick drift, which is where you're not touching the controller and your character's view is still like slightly drifting, then all that means is you want to turn your dead zones up a little bit higher and keep going until you don't have stick drift anymore. Now for controller, these don't really matter. Vehicle, they added a bunch of like random settings that don't really matter. And now my binds are gonna be way different than what you probably use because I have this controller. So on my controller, I have 4 extra paddles on the back that I use to like sprint, I jump, I edit, and I even pull out my pickaxe with all of them. And then I also have 2 side buttons on my controller, which I use one of them to like interact so I can pick up weapons. And then my other one, I have it set to rotate builds, so I can sit here and rotate builds just by clicking this side button. So basically I can be editing at 1,000 miles per hour, I can be piecing someone up, hitting some clips, and while doing all of this, my thumbs will never come off of my sticks. That's very different from someone just using like a standard controller, which is why unless you have this specific controller, I don't usually recommend people to copy my binds because it just doesn't make sense. Settings though, yeah, I definitely recommend people to copy these. And now to prove that these settings are as good as I'm hyping them up to be, let's play some real games in Unreal Rank solos. Like, of course, as soon as I get done fighting, I'm low HP, and this guy can just turbo through all my walls. Ooh, what a shot. Burn. And I think to end this one out, I'm gonna get some 1v1s in on my map. And in it, you can change to like custom crosshairs. You can completely customize the backgrounds. You can even turn on some music. There's a bunch of other cool features, of course, alongside just the nice 1v1 map. Let's go. Oh my. Oh. And on that one, I think I'll end it. Make sure to check out the sponsor, try out this map, and let me know how you like it. Thank you guys so much for watching.